With so many shadows coming up for our witnessing, it can get really confusing and disorienting as the structures of the old reality crumble right before our eyes as we seek to find new ground to stand on. How do we do that? And so today, William Meyer is here to guide us in this conversation for discernment and how we anchor ourselves in that higher frequency, the truth of us, the one that we always are eternally, the love that we are. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and share our stories of connection with that which is greater than us, to the great mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably towards a deeper understanding of ourselves and what we are doing at this time on the planet, Mother Earth, during the Great Awakening. I'm your host, Kerri Hummingbird, and I am so delighted to be here today to be a conduit of beautiful blessing and light energy and wisdom to support everyone at this time on the planet, which I personally also have been finding a bit challenging, and using all of my wisdom tools to support me in coming into clarity within myself. And so if you're feeling that need for discernment, that question, what is this smoky mirror? What is it showing me? What is the truth? How do I move through this when everyone sees things differently? How do I maintain my grace in the middle of the mud storm? How do we show up with more love, more truth, more grace in the middle of this time on the planet? Then you're in the right place, because this conversation is going to uplift you. We're going to talk about having a guiding light for the discernment of truth, staying centered in that light so that you can really move through the world in a graceful way. That's a blessing not only for you, but also for others that you come in contact with. And so today we have the wonderful, the beautiful, the fantastic William Meyer with us. Welcome, William.
Hey, Kerri, and hello, divine listeners.
So excited to have William here. He's a beautiful, bright, shining light. I've been on his podcast, Angels Around Us. And so go check that out. I'll put the link in the show notes below. William helps heal and empower you to live your best life. Through his work as an angel advisor, spiritual life coach, and mentor, he channels divine beings of love and light for your highest good, including a collective of 60,000 ascended masters. His book is coming this fall, The Healed You, and it's the definitive spirit-led guide to emotional healing, which we could all use at this time on the planet. I think we could all agree. And he says that you are the heal you of love, peace, and joy, and you can release anything that blocks this reality for you by seeing what is and what is not you. And so I'll put the links in the show notes below, so check that out. And in the meantime, William, we've had such a great conversation before on your podcast. It kind of got off the chain and really awesome. So I'm hoping the Ascended Masters come through again for us and lift us up out of the muck and help us to really shine a light for others today. I can already feel it coming in. It's starting to pulsate. So it's super exciting. Woohoo. Okay. So, well, tell us a little bit about yourself first to get going. Like, how did you find your guiding light? And how do you find it on a regular basis? And how do you become a podcast host for Angels Around Us? And then let's dive into the messages that I feel the masters really have for us to share at this time. So take it away, William.
Absolutely. Thank you. Such a pleasure to be on your show. And yeah, we did have a wonderful conversation, which I implore your listeners to go check out. I'll keep it short and sweet, a little bit about me. I've always felt this is what I usually say. I have always felt a guiding tone that's always been in the background, and that is the tone of my higher spiritual nature or the higher self, which is part of divine source, right? The one infinite unity, which we're all a part of. We are all beings of love, light, and peace, and joy, and happiness. And so that's been my guiding light that's always been trying to get my attention. But all throughout my life, I've either listened to it or I've not listened to it. So it's been a long, meandering path to get to the point where I consciously realize what it is that's trying to guide me, number one. Number two, how to listen to it. And number three, discern and release what is not that. Because the couple words that you said in the introduction there about my book coming out this fall, The Healed You, the definitive spirit-led guide to emotional healing, I talk about that discernment process. And I really try to paint a detailed picture on what is really you, that spiritual nature of light and love and joy, and what is not you, which I call the unhealed you. That's the stuff that's chaotic and painful and traumatizing. And there are a lot of strong words, but that's essentially anything that is not your true self of love and light and joy, right? These are things like relationship traumas that you're holding on to, behavioral patterns, feelings of dread or fear, worries, judgments, not only in our self-judgment, but in the world around us too. Because if we're standing in our true self of love, light, and joy, then there is no judgment, there is no fear, there is no worry. So this period of time that we're in right now is so critical for discerning all of that, because we're seeing all the stuff come up to the surface right now. We were just talking about women's rights, people of color, self-empowerment right before we started the recording, and all of that stuff is coming up to the surface. It's been hidden for so long, not even centuries, thousands and thousands of years, however long humanity has been here. So with all of that coming up to the surface now, our task as humans here on Earth is to discern what is really us and what is not us. Because the stuff that's really us, again, is the love, the connectedness. We're from the same source. We have a loving God. We are part of love. We give love and joy so effortlessly. That's who we are. This stuff about wars and conflict and judgment and worrying about financial troubles, all of that is not us. And so there's a great conversation that we're going to have here, and I'm going to hand it back to you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. So, I mean, we're here to experience life in its totality, while not forgetting who we are in truth. That is challenging because we come here, the illusion is really fantastic. And, you know, we feel everything, we see everything, we hear everything. And I actually had this medicine ceremony not that long ago where in the middle of the ceremony, I got this visual of us, like basically children of God, like up in heaven, like reminding each other, hey, this is all for fun. No, I love you. Like, don't forget it. Like, we're just playing here. This is just a playground. It's all love. We don't actually feel all this way that we're saying down there. And I had this moment of recognizing that that was actually really, really true. And at the same time, asking myself, well, then why are we doing all of this crazy stuff down here? Like, what's the point? What's the point of feeling grief? What's the point of feeling angry? What's the point of saying things to each other that pretty much suck? You know, what's the point of all this mess we created? And if there was a point to it, can we wrap it up? Because like, I feel like we've been sitting around down here playing Monopoly and at the family table for thousands of years, and I'm done with that game. Like, I want to play some other game. I want to play something more fun. I want to play something more aligned with our true nature. I want to play a game that includes everyone and where we don't have to have that experience of not feeling wanted. I want to feel like we could be divine right here, right? Just heaven on earth, right? So what are you getting about that?
Well, I wanted to say at this point in the episode, if anyone is still listening, then you are a light worker, right? You are one of the people who are here to help birth heaven on earth. And this is, again, going back to this time of discernment right now. In order to live on heaven on earth, we need to release what is and heal and transmute what is not heaven on earth. So again, that's why all this stuff is coming up for us to see and realize and transmute and heal. And that requires, as we were talking about right before, feeling it, right? You have to feel it in order to heal it.
Yeah, and it's that feeling thing, that not taking it personally as one of the four agreements, which I think the four agreements are here for us during this time of the planetary shift to support us in keeping things straight. You know, it's like be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions and do your best. And also the fifth agreement of discernment. I feel like these agreements are here for us at this particular transit in our development as a human species. But it's really hard to not take it personally when you're feeling it in every cell of your body, or when you're just like I literally have cried. I have had afternoons where all I could do was just cry. And it's not because my life has anything worth crying about. Like, my life is great, but I'm feeling like this collective energy that's really painful, this like conflict, this hatred, even this collective grief and shadows, that all I can really do when feeling that is cry.
Attachment is one of the things that is really going to make this process a lot more difficult, because like yourself and like a lot of the listeners that are still here with us, they are very sensitive people. Not only are they feeling their own energies, like how they've been doing most of their life, but now is the time where that's changing. So you're starting to feel the energies of the people around you, not only your immediate family and friends, but I'm talking strangers, neighbors, people in your town, the collective energies around you. And that extends out to the collective of humanity. Every single soul that is incarnated in a human body right now, that's the collective. And so these light workers that are here, people like you, me, and my mom and other people, they are being activated to feel these energies, because in order for this stuff, and I'm not talking about the stuff that people generally know about, like what we spoke about earlier, women empowerment, people of color, etc. Those are big ticket items. Everyone kind of has some thoughts on that. But stuff that we wouldn't even think of, like stuff that happened thousands of years ago, it all kind of builds and builds up to this bird's nest of just trauma and like feeling bad feelings and like really heavy stuff, right? And so we're feeling that for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And sometimes we don't understand completely why or where this is going in the moment, right? So detachment is a huge, huge thing. It's one of the main tools that will help people continue to go throughout this process and try to retain as much sanity as possible, right? Because going through these things, I mean, oh my gosh, the stuff that just you feel on an hour by hour, minute by minute, sometimes it changes and it shifts in so many different ways. And so if we're constantly attached to what we're feeling, even if it's not ours, because a lot of this isn't ours, it didn't come from our lifetime, it didn't come from our past lifetimes in this human body. This is the collective of humanity that we're feeling. And so if we're attaching our identity, so to speak, onto these feelings, if we're saying, oh, I'm so depressed and I don't know why, but clearly I'm feeling it, so that must mean it's mine, right? No, it needs to be felt in order to be healed. So that's one of the huge tools, is to keep that affirmation that these things that I'm feeling are probably not mine, right? If they are yours, then there's somewhere that it comes from, and you can dive into that. But again, ask yourself, is this mine? Or is this something that is just transitory, that I'm feeling for a period of time, and then it just needs a conduit in order to feel, right? Because feeling it and is putting your awareness onto it. And when you put your awareness onto these traumas and these pains and these hurts, your awareness is your light. That's your light and your love. And by shining that torch, that flashlight onto this darkness, this pain, it dissipates. It goes away.
Yeah, I feel that. I actually did ask, and it was not mine, it was collective. And I kept asking, is this the right thing for me to do to spend my energy this way right now? Yes. And then for a while, it was like just cry. And then it was like just sit there and just call in. In this case, it was Cosmic Mother, like calling in Cosmic Mother to the planet through me on behalf of all, just to call in Cosmic Mother. And then after a while of that, it was like, do a chakra clearing on Mother Earth. I was like, okay, I don't understand, but okay. Chakra clearing on Mother Earth with tobacco and a rattle? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll do chakra clearing on Mother Earth with my tobacco and rattle. Are you serious? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do that now. I feel a little weird. So I called in all my guys in support and all my medicine lineages and all the Native American ancestors of this land, and just called on any kind of soul that knew how to do that or was able to have gifts to contribute. And I just did it, and but today, I have to just follow this guidance, right? Like when you say stuff like that out loud, I even feel a little insane with that, but I just have to trust that that's what I was called to do. And so I did it. And then I just wanted to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so there's a lot there that you just said. Number one, which we'll dive into. Number one, I love that you recognize that that is something that you needed to do, that you were guided to do that. And you were able to discern the voice of the higher spirits, right? The spirits of light and love that directed you to do that. And a lot of the people that are also listening are spiritual practitioners. They have similar guidance that they are directed to hear and to do, because as physical beings on earth, we can do things that spirits on the other side can't do. Well, they can do it, but it just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Whereas here, if you just simply do a ceremony like how you usually do with your tobacco and medicine woman clearing, I don't know the technical terms, I'm sorry, but that is just so amazing for you to do that. And that's already baked into your intention because you've done that for so many times. And that's what Earth needs right now, is people like yourself to pick up the proverbial torch and say, I'm going to help heal the collective energies right now. And that's so important. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing, right? You could do this in the middle of your day, whenever you feel led to do. Maybe if you're just feeling like in a cosmic sort of space and you just feel led to sit down for a moment and listen to what Spirit's saying, maybe that's the moment where you will be guided to do some clearing, do some cleansing, right? Because that is what's needed right now. And so going back to that discernment, I feel when you were speaking, for someone out there, it might be really difficult to hear. They might have a lot of voices coming in their head, right? And you and I were speaking earlier about the dark versus the light, and what voice is coming from where. Is it dark? Is it light? But for you here, that was a very clear intention. Help cleanse Earth with your techniques that you are already familiar with. So that made a lot of sense. If you were getting that guidance, it was not only a loving, caring voice, but it was also an expansive voice. Do this to help heal. And there was no undertones of fear or worry, or you have to do this, otherwise X, Y, and Z will happen and it'll be so much worse.
No, there was just like my egoic, like, me, like kind of like that. Like, are you sure? It was that kind of egotistical, because that is egotistical. It's like, yes, you're being asked, so just do it. It's not like you're not harming anybody. It's a pure intention of support.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to that intention too, in my work, I've worked with a lot of different people to help heal and overcome emotional wounds and traumas and pains, and again, discernment. That's, I think, that's the theme for today's episode. um, so discernment is the key for today's episode, because intention is so important. If your intention is set on that guiding light, discerning what is the guiding light and what is not, what is that place of truth and love and joy and what is not that, if you just set your intention on that is your guiding light, if you just want to be led by light and love, then you will be. And anything that comes up that challenges that intention, hold it up to that light and ask it. Ask the light, ask spirit, ask your guides, ask the angels, ask the ascended masters that you look up to. Is this something that is of the truth, of light and love? Or is this part of the darkness that's being let go? Ask spirit when you have a voice that comes up, or some guidance, right? Because if you ask spirit, and everyone here can talk with their angels, there's no barriers of communication for you to speak with the angels. They are countless, infinity number of angels that are here at your disposal, so readily available. Ask them, is this voice and guidance that I'm hearing, is it of the light? Is it of God? And if so, give me a sign, make me feel that love, that expansion, that beauty alongside the guiding voice. And that voice, if there's a lot of chaos and ego that's going on in your inner world right now, it might just be a fraction of a fraction down at the very bottom of what the chaotic voices that you're hearing, right? But it's going to be there, and it's going to feel a little confusing if you have all of those chaotic, egotistical, fear-based voices trying to point you in the other direction. But there's going to be that, well, I feel all this worry, and I feel like, why is it me? But then underneath all that, it's going to be it's okay. We're giving you this choice. This will help to empower and cleanse and heal.
Yeah, and it feels like this is really important guidance, because a lot of people in the United States, anyway, I can't speak for the world, but have been conditioned in such a way to expect things to present themselves in certain ways, and that's the only way, right? And so when opening up to what you're talking about and what I've been experiencing is that there's infinite number of ways for the divine, like the authentic, pure light divine that we are, to show up for us. And it's really orchestrated for everyone's highest good, whatever that each person's filter is, like what each person's truth is, if you will, and how they can receive that information. So just to break it down, like for some people, Jesus is like the only thing, like that's it. If it's not Jesus, then it's not real, right? And then there's also people within that conversation that have arguments about which is the real Jesus. So there's that whole conversation too. And that's for some people that doesn't work because of the abuse associated with religious institutions that they grew up with around that. And so Mary Magdalene might be a better energy for that person to relate to, because she feels more connected with that ascended master teacher than with Jesus, as Jesus has been misaligned in her domestication. Yeah. And so we have to honor, I think we don't have to do anything, but what would be really wonderful, let's just put Kerri Hummingbird's desire out there. What would be really wonderful is if we could all respect each other's pathways that the divine is leading us into our highest alignment and into our highest truth, and trust that we don't need to moderate that experience or control it or judge it or condemn anyone for how the divine is guiding them, that we can just let everybody be on the path that they're meant to walk towards the divine home that we're all going to, called heaven, that we can actually let each other walk the path that we're meant to walk and trust that we're all guided. and not make ourselves the arbiters of each other's experiences.
Yeah, and the resounding theme of what you just said is free will, right? Free will comes up a lot in spirituality and also when it comes to healing, because some of the people that I work with, they have really emotionally damaged partners or friends that they really, really, really want to help them see the light and see the love. And yes, we do our part when asked by spirit and when led by our own higher selves, our own divine guidance. But also, you can never overstep someone's journey towards inner healing because you can't choose for them when to heal and how to heal, right? So that's another big key that a lot of your listeners right now are resonating with. It's because, yes, a lot of them understand the light. They feel the light inside them. They feel the love. They feel spirit. They feel the angels. And they want to share that with the world. And of course, I do too. But we also have to keep in mind that a lot of people, like you and I were discussing on our podcast recording on my show, the collective right now is a dried up, caked, muddy cup, right? And spirit is pouring in that love, that water into this dried mud. And the mud has been without that water for so long that it's having trouble receiving it. And so what happens is you just keep pouring more water in and more water in, but you can't force the mud to accept the water. It needs to happen in its own terms. It takes a little bit of time. Maybe that cup needs to burst wide open before it can really accept the water, the love. So everyone is on their own path, and it's up to the individual who is on the path to decide when they accept the love and in what capacity. Sometimes it's only a little bit. You give a little bit, you give a little bit more. And it's just up to the light worker, you, me, the listener, you, to recognize that and to respect that path, respect the free will, because we know that we are beings of light and love, that nothing can ever change that, even while we're in this deep, deep, deep illusion, right? Nothing can change our true nature. So that's the best news that we can get, because we know that that's where we're headed and nothing is changing that final destination. It's just a matter of when and where.
Yeah, I actually had that download too, where I was asking, so is there can I possibly do anything to turn this back? And the answer was no. So there's pretty much, it's going and it's happening all around us and we see it. And so you were talking about holding that guiding light for discernment, because in the middle of this transition where it's kind of like structures dissolving, belief systems that you may have relied on for a sense of wellness or well-being or security are now revealed to be maybe not as high vibrational as you had thought that they were. Or maybe you might see that the community that you've grown up in or been, practice your religious beliefs with, you might start to notice that some of these behaviors or these words don't match the intentions of those communities, right? And you might start waking up to that. Like it might have been completely bypassing you for a long time that was going on, but then all of a sudden something caught your attention and you can't stop seeing it, right? And when that happens, that's really can be catastrophic in a sense for someone's feeling of safety, because then it's like, where do I go next? And I think that this piece is a piece I've been doing my best to embrace, to be compassionate, because a lot of times when people are flailing about in their fear of the thing that brought them stability is no longer to be trusted, there's like this intense fear and they could be flailing about. And in the process of doing that, they could fling some mud over to you because you're the one who kind of woke them up out of a piece of it, and be angry with you for that. And so that's something that, that mud flinging is like, not to take that personally and to find a way to have compassion, even if you're feeling attacked, right? Like as one holding the light, you're holding the lantern, and people are like, I don't want to see this lantern. I don't want to know that is disrupting my sense of safety.
Well, that compassion and the love is that foundation which will never fall out from underneath you. These concepts that you were just describing, basing your foundation on a system or a concept that is not based in that truth of light and love, that maybe there's a little judgment, maybe there's a little worry or fear baked into that, that's shaky ground. And this is what's happening, is the floor's falling out from underneath all of those things, one by one, piece by piece, and it's going to continue to happen. And so when that does happen, it challenges you. The people that are using those false concepts as their foundation, when that falls, they're going to have to face the deciding factor within them. Well, if this didn't give me a solid foundation, what can? Right? And that's why compassion and love is so, so, so important, because that's where this is directing us to, is to discover that inside of us and see that truth. And that's the thing that will never let us down. So give compassion to others, give compassion to yourself, right? I always say that love dissipates fear, love dissipates worry, because if you channel the true beingness of who you are, if you try your very best, and I'm not saying to force it, because sometimes we try to force love past barriers and walls sometimes, and yes, love can break past barriers and walls, but I'm talking about internally within ourselves. So giving ourselves love and compassion, that's always within our total free will, going back to what we were saying earlier. But if you try to give love and compassion to someone that isn't ready for it, it can sometimes do more harm than good. And again, that's where the discernment comes in, and using your own inner guiding light. For the light worker that's listening, hold it up to your heart. And sometimes it's really challenging too, because we're prompted, we feel like we need to help everyone all the time, right? Because we see so much hurt and pain in the world and in people, that all we want to do is help. But sometimes giving them that truth and that love and support that comes from our true divine nature of light and love, sometimes it can affect their path and make their journey longer and more drawn out. So it's not helping in the way that you intended. Going back to intention too, holding that inner space, sometimes you just need to hold a space of peace and presence. And I love your analogy, the people flinging mud around trying to figure out what's what, right? Sometimes that mud is just going to get flung onto you in that process. And if you try to give them love during that, they're in a irrational mindset. They're probably not going to accept it. So then what do? If the mud is trying to get flung onto you from that person, that peace, it is going to be that layer that deflects all of that, right? Hold that peace, hold that state of joy.
Or just like a flat out boundary, like
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't tolerate that behavior. Thanks for trying, but there's like as much neutrality as possible, right? But also, like, the thing I find right now for that I've been looking into is the energetics of being the empath, right? So being a super empath means that we can feel everything around us with a lot of clarity in terms of the energetics of things, right? The emotional energetics of things. And a lot of that stuff's not ours, and we can forget that. And so we sometimes might get into relationships with people who are, like you said, they're not in a place of receiving what you're offering because they're not in that space. They're in a different space. It's kind of like, if for a lot of people, there's been so much inherited trauma and so much noise, let's say, that the stereo's turned up to like 15 and it only has a dial of 12. So if you're speaking at 2, it is not even perceived. Like, it's not even on the spectrum of being heard. It's like trying to whisper to somebody in a rock concert. So there's also just energetic mindfulness, right? To, yes, hold love in yourself for the person, but also you don't have to be a bullseye for mud.
And going back to discernment too, all of this kind of revolves around our internal processes and mechanisms for discerning what is truth and what is not truth, right? Because you and I are speaking about different ways of coping in challenging situations with people around us that are going through their own conflict about their own healing journey, right? And so how do we as light workers decide how to act and in what way and in what capacity? Do we hold space with just peace and joy and just give them a loving, compassionate hug and energy, right? Or do we give them the all capitals love and shout it at them to try and break them out of this spell? So there is no rule for every situation. Aside from this one rule, which is develop your own intuition. Remember your intuition of your divine self. Hold that connection as strongly as you can. The most important thing for meditation right now, for your own interpersonal, inner growth and development, is to develop this connection with your divine self, right? Of course, if you need to do healing to get to that place, do it. Whatever comes up while you're trying to make that connection stronger and wider and open up that funnel and that channel for your divine self to guide you, heal it. Address the stuff within you. This is you we're talking to, not the other person that's causing you pain and trauma, because that's in their own world. If people around you are causing hurts to you, then there's something inside you that's being bothered by that. Because if you're staying in your light and your love and your divine self, if you're embodying that, then nothing could ever really bother you, because you understand, you have that higher perspective that, yeah, that's just the illusion. I know what the truth is, right? Like the laughing Buddha. I get it. Like, I understand why all of this is happening. And, oh, they're just playing a thing right now, but the illusion is so hard sometimes. And so that's where that leap of faith needs to be taken. Yes, I know I'm in a human body. Yes, I know the earth is so painful. Yes, I know all of these people are saying some really awful things and they're doing really bad stuff, but it's just an illusion. And I know that my higher self is not that. I know my true nature is love and acceptance and understanding.
Yeah. And so that guiding light is really important. And like you said, like being able to access it in those moments where the human experience is big, immersive, intense,
Challenging.
And also to notice what the Toltecs call mitote, right? So the mitote is that rock concert I was talking about. It's like, because as we work this path, at least what I've noticed for myself, is I can really hear and perceive a lot of content, right? So even if I just tune into social media for like a couple hours, I'm like saturated, and so now, because I'm saturated, I might be feeling really depleted. I might be feeling overwhelmed by the amount of that content. And so now I got to sequester myself. I've got to slow down. I've got to support myself with frequencies, with incense, with, agua farita, whatever, tobacco, kind of like be quiet, feel everything, and then release that control, right? Just release the reactivity and just let myself feel it all. And then things get resolved back to peace. And so I've been doing this, but I've been asking, like, is this really the best use of my time right now? And the answer was yes. And so I feel like maybe this has just been my way of tapping into the frequencies in the collective that need healing, and then kind of absorbing them, feeling them, and then processing them, through my own filters and body, as a way of providing resolution to those things by bringing spirit in, right? By then opening the conduit to my higher self, to my spirit guides, to the planet, to cosmic mother, to whatever energetics would support those energies to be transmuted, alchemized back into peace and love, which for me then, in my personal experience, supports me in being less reactive to those kinds of things, right? But I feel like also in the collective, it supports, maybe that's just part of my function. It's what my astrological chart says, but, it's like part of what I'm here to do. And so, but my brain can really argue with me about that, because then I can be like, well, I needed to do marketing, or I'm promoting my next program, but that's important. And I want those people, to come in, and I want to focus on that. And for that to be successful, I need to be high vibration. This is not high vibrational. This is low vibrational. And then I could get frustrated about it. Right. So there has been this little inner tussle about where I spend my time and focus my energies.
And one of the things that I have been receiving lately in just being in my own life and receiving from spirit is that we can hold that space and that presence and beingness of our higher divine selves while doing those tasks. But what you were describing is I relate to so much, because I find myself, I just finished a little reno project on my bedroom, and I got so in the headspace of, oh, I have to do this. I have to get it done. And I'm going to shut everything out until it's done. And so my lesson there was that you don't need to. You don't need to shut out the love and the joy while you're doing these mundane things, the things on your to-do list, going to get groceries, going to finish your marketing stuff. I got to do marketing too. That's on my to-do list, but you can hold that love and that joy while you're doing that. And that for me is the huge lesson right now for these light workers that are at a certain point where we've already done a lot of inner healing, that maybe we've discovered the inner light within us and we know what that guiding light is like. So now it's time to really embody that and to feel it and to expand it out throughout our day-to-day, because absolutely a lot of those people that have discovered it in meditation. They quiet the mind, they quiet the brain, they let it all fall to the wayside, and then that light can shine through. That's beautiful. That's amazing. If you can experience that in just a moment of meditation, just one moment, and that's the only time in your life that you experience that, that is a blessing. So now, if people are experiencing that in their daily meditations, that's an even more beautiful blessing. And then if you experience that while you're driving, how beautiful is that? And then while you're sitting there typing at the computer, typing out an email, that's incredible. That is kind of what is coming for us as light workers, to help expand that out, because that's what being on earth, being heaven on earth is like. That you can do this stuff in the physical world. You can work on your computer and do this stuff while being in the presence and beingness of your higher self.
Yeah, which is what we're working towards. And in order to get there, we got to hollow the bone. And that, if that bone's got a lot of marrow in it from thousands of years of ancestry, that's being provoked by all the stuff that's on social media and in the collective, then we have to also be, and like you said, feel that stuff to clear the pipes, feel it, to heal it, be with it, and not necessarily sequester from it. Like you said, blocking everything out. If we block everything out, then we're not really being a sort of offering ourselves as that filtration system. Because all of us have DNA all the way back to the beginning of the human species in our bodies. Think about that. Like, we all have human DNA from the oldest version of being human inside of our bodies. So if we open ourselves to allow this beautiful, divine, compassionate, loving energy to encompass all of those cells of our body that might be stirred up from whatever we're seeing out there in the collective, because we're not hiding from it. We're willingly revealing it to ourselves. Just think like how much is getting healed every moment we choose to do that. Wow. That's powerful.
And it is a choosing, right? Every
Yeah.
single moment we have the choice of, am I staying in my light in this challenging moment? Like I maybe have chosen otherwise before. Like maybe in this situation, I've chosen to stay in the ego mind or the fear or the worry or judgment. We're being offered the choice to now step into the light in those moments. And that's what's so beautiful about this is it's all going back to free will. We have that choice. You, if you're listening and you want to stay in the darkness, that's totally up to you. You could do that, but it's going to be, you're going to feel more and more challenged as humanity continues going through this shift in consciousness, right? Because this is where humanity is going. This is where this version of Earth is going right now, is towards the light. And so if you want to stay in darkness, again, that's up to you. It's just going to get really difficult to keep doing that in the future. So, yeah.
And it's also going to get difficult to keep thinking, from the brain is the other thing that's challenging. And it feels like there's this expansion that is coming in to sort of relieve us of the necessity for translating, figuring out, solving problems.
That is
Pretty much all of that.
That is a beautiful sneak peek of something that is coming.
I'm already experiencing it, but yes.
Yeah, well, I relate that very much to our beautiful friends from the Syrian constellation. They experienced that very strongly, that shift from operating at a physical brain level to embodying that purity of consciousness, and really, again, shifting from like language, sound language, to telepathic communication, because the process of translating our higher spiritual intentions and will into a physical form required the medium of speech at some point. This is where we're at in humanity too, because we're our higher selves, we're channeling that will and intention through our physical bodies. So that requires the implement of speech to talk with other people and share these intentions. But as we continue to evolve in consciousness, and this is what I was referring to as a sneak peek, because this will be coming where we're no longer going to be speaking with people. For those that are already operating on that higher plane, you might notice that the words don't seem as important anymore, that you can get, and partners that are in deep, deep love with each other and are so harmonious, they already experience this where you don't have to speak what's on your mind for the other person to understand how you're feeling and what your thoughts are on something. You could just either look at them or think about them and be like, I know what, yeah, I know.
That happened this morning, actually, because I didn't have time before my first interview to get anything more than my shake. So I went and got my green shake, and I came home, but I didn't have time to go. I wanted to go to Starbucks and get a little bit of coffee because I'm feeling tired today. And I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and augment, and get some, but I didn't have time. So I came here. I didn't have time. And then like an hour later, my husband walks up and he hands me this iced coffee. I was like, how did you know to go? Because he just knows. And then that's not a normal thing. Like he's never done that for me before. But somehow he got the message, right, that I needed that today to carry out my day today. And he brought it to me. It was really nice. And I didn't have to even ask for it. Like you just did it.
And my dad is starting to see some of these things too. I've always felt that he's a very intuitive person, but he just didn't recognize that within himself. And so now some of the things he says, and this is because I've developed this intuition and that knowingness to discern what is truth and what is the higher self of love and light, and what is that falsehood, the illusion, the world of Maya, as the Buddhists call it, the darkness. I can see when he's channeling now. He doesn't know it, If he's listening to this,
Yeah.
if he listens to that, he's going to say, no, what are you talking about? You know, but as light workers now, that is something that you're going to start to see in people that have never even delved into the world of spirituality or psychics or developing mediumship or intuition. You're going to start seeing this happen more and more in the world as consciousness continues to evolve, because people have been talking about the veil thinning for the past few years. Now it's really going to start thinning.
Oh yeah, because it's accelerating.
It is.
Yeah, I had this experience as well where my eldest son is not very good with words. So that mechanism it's hard for him to put things into words. But in a meditation I was in with him, it was clear as day. Like I was like, oh my God, it's totally clear. I can hear everything you're saying, direct and clear to me. Wow. So it was kind of amazing, right? But I feel like that's where it's heading but we can still use our voices and sing and everything else. But also the use of the mind to sort of rationalize or explain things that really aren't in truth. That also I'm really aware of that now. Like I'm aware of that egoic defense of its ideas, in like rationalizing and putting words in place for all that. I noticed that the energy of that is defensive. And so now I just go, oh, that's nice. Now I can just, I don't have to read all that. I can just feel the density of it. And I know that it's egoic defense because it's super dense. Because truth is very easy and simple and quick and not that hard to understand, actually. But if there's a whole lot of words to it and it feels dense, it's from the ego.
Yeah. And I talk about this in my book too, the difficulty and the challenges that one may feel when faced with the truth is simply because of your choosing to continue to hold on to those things of the darkness and the unhealed you and the wounds and the trauma, all that stuff I group together because it's not you. All of that stuff that is not you you could call it whatever you want. It's not you, right? And that's what we were talking about before. If you're continuing to hold on to it, it's only going to get harder from here on out, because this is where we're going. The level of consciousness of humanity, the level of the ocean, so to speak, is rising. And so if you're still chained to the ocean floor by some old beliefs, then you're going to start to drown a little bit. You're going to start taking on water. And so all you have to do is just cut that cord and let yourself float to the surface alongside the rest of us and see the light and be bathed and bask in that light.
And it feels like it's happening pretty quickly. It feels like it's happening at kind of an astounding, accelerating rate. But yet you also said that it's many lifetimes, still to come before it's complete. And so I feel like on the one side, I feel like this could happen very, very quickly because I know how quick my awakening journey was. It's like all of a sudden one day I realized it and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to change. And so then, then I was in the process of learning to change, right? I was in the process of learning how to release all the painful things and let go of all those hurts and wake up, right? So that's a process. It took me about 12 years. I feel like it can happen faster for people now that more of us are doing it. So that seems like that could happen really quick. And then I had somebody say to me, I think this is the last election we're ever going to have. And I was like, you think it's in 4 years that we're not going to need to like have a government? And I think that might be a little too quick, but you never know what's going to happen. Maybe anything is possible. I don't know what you feel about all that, but I do feel like we need systems and structures in place, to support us in cooperatively living with each other. And it might take a little, if we're all like in the midst of a massive awakening process, anything that looks like mine, we're going to be puking in buckets, dude. Like we're not going to really have time and space to like, figure out governments. So maybe that's what he was referring to. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I always say that, and we touched on this before, our true nature is effortless. Living as our true divine selves is effortless because that's who we are. And so again, the challenges that we feel is because of our choosing to hold on to that which is not us. So we were talking just now about like elections and politics, and we spoke earlier before the recording too. These are broken systems that were built by darkness and unconsciousness, because if they were truly from our higher self, then it would be easy for these systems to perpetrate love and connectedness and joy and prosperity. Clearly they haven't done that,
No, it's
right?
been really hateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, these systems, everything is going to need to go through that discernment process. And sometimes it takes the whole world to look at something and say, yes or no, is this truly us? Is this really for me, my highest good? Because clearly, a lot of governments, I think almost every single government on the planet, unless there are some indigenous governments that really truly try to embody that love, right? Like Native American tribes do, whom I love. I know you're very connected with them. A lot of these governments out there are corrupt. They want to take as much money as possible. They want to take as much power as possible. That doesn't jive with for the highest good of all, because governments are supposed to be for the people, for the highest good of every single individual, and not just the ones that they choose to put their attention onto. So I don't think you or I could tell if there really will be an election following this year in 2024. I don't know. But all I know is that the system of elections is going to crumble at one point or another, because it is not for the highest good. So when that happens, I don't know. It's not an if, but a when.
Yeah. And then it's kind of like back to like Richard Rudd's idea from the Gene Keys of synarchy, and every person being placed just automatically, kind of like a beehive, in exactly the spot where they're going to flourish the most. Eventually that will happen for all of us too. Like you and I are messengers, we speak. That's what we do. We do some other things too, but we're messengers. And so that's a function that's super easy for us. It just happens naturally, and opportunities just show up for that to happen. And I feel like in my heart, like the same as that's true, there's somebody that knows how to like make sure that there's systems in place for us to drive on roads. Like there's people that are perfect for that. Where like they'll figure out the most brilliant solutions for us to do what we need to do to get from point A to point B. Like that's brilliant. But that would
And they
never
love
be
doing that.
me. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
There's no way. And like Oprah said, everyone wanted Oprah to be president. And she's like, no way. That's not my thing. I don't want to do that. I'm a thought leader. I like to read books, so I think we'll all find our perfect placement. And then it won't be a matter of like, and because we'll all be really much more psychic by then, there won't be so much debate over things. Like it's like a lot easier to figure out someone's true intentions when you can really feel into their hearts. So I
It
think I
feels
answered
like
my own question.
yeah. Well, it feels like a really interesting thing, what I'm about to say, a very funny thing, but savor these debates in politics while they're happening now, because this will probably be some of the last ones you'll see, because again, with the crumbling of these systems, we're going to develop the ability to just know what the right placement is, what the right systems are, because yes, humanity and the earth does need roads. We need airplanes and cars until we develop the technology where we don't need them anymore. But for right now, we're going to need that, because I still need to get from point A to point B. I still need to talk to Kerri over the internet for a podcast recording. So there needs to be people maintaining these systems. But I work in an IT company right now for my day job. Surprise, surprise. But I work with some people who genuinely love technology and they love working on this stuff. Like that's all that matters to them, right? Beautiful stuff. This is what is coming. This is what the golden age of ancient civilizations used to be, right? Atlantis, Lemuria. You have people that dedicate their entire lives to getting the most amount of love and joy, not only for themselves, but in the work that they do, taking most amount of care and love to plant a strawberry seed in the ground and water it lovingly every single day and watch it grow from a little seed, gathering the light from the sun, producing the most beautiful fruits. If that's your life purpose, go do that. You don't have to slave away at an office feeling miserable about yourself, because that's not you. This is the time where everything is changing. And we haven't seen the most of it yet. It is coming,
Oh,
and
we
it is
just got the beginning of it
amazing.
right now. It's just like the very bursting of the little plant above the soil. Like literally just like the little green thing just went like peaked above the soil.
Well, you know what's really funny too, using that analogy, is that you know how fast a plant grows once it starts to branch out and get more leaves because it's exponential, right? It takes so long for that seed in the dark soil being watered every single day for that little tiny seed to sprout the tiniest little green stem and poke above the soil. It takes almost more than half the lifetime of the entire plant sometimes to do that, like months and months and months. And so now, once that stem reaches the light, it starts to gain nutrients from the light. That's where we're at. And so you spoke about how everything is accelerating, and my mom and I have been saying this for months, like this entire year, everything's been getting faster and faster because now the stem of humanity has seen and started to reach and get the nutrients from the light, from divine source. So now it is starting to go, it is going to get faster and faster as we continue to grow more leaves and more stems and get bigger as the plant and everything. And it's just, oh, I get so excited about it.
It's very exciting. Is that's super inspirational to help us get through. So that's a good guiding light for that discernment. Thank you for that vision and that energy, William. That's beautiful. Let's just anchor that in, everyone. It's gorgeous.
I feel
So
like that's a
yeah, and it's a good place to end it. And I was just gonna say, like, if there's that helps us get through the mulching still happening under the soil. It's okay. It's mulching. It's fine. Let it mulch. Focus on that we have touched the light. Ah, it's beautiful.
because the other thing too, with the little bacterias that are in the soil right now doing the hard work, sometimes light workers are in that space doing that hard work too. But that process of converting something that is wasteful in the soil to something that is nutritious, like bacteria that turns all these things into like nitrogen in the soil, that's continuing to feed the plant. You're seeing all of this darkness being turned into things that feed us and continue our growth, like figuring out how governments and systems and businesses and maybe capitalism too, all the systems in the world right now don't work for us. But in that process of transmuting it, it turns it into the nutrients that feed us to help us excel and grow more into that light. And so that's the bright side of everything, even though it looks so dreary and so dim and so awful in the world right now. We are transmuting that into things that help feed our growth into the light. And I think that analogy is just so beautiful.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Yeah, let's anchor that in. That's beautiful, William. Thank you so much for channeling that through for us. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And so, is there anything that you'd like to offer people as a way to get to know you better? You have a book coming this fall, The Healed You. Do you have a landing page for that yet where people can go pre-order, or they just stay tuned and get on your podcast and listen to you Angels Around Us podcast?
Yes, my podcast, you can hear all up-to-date stuff on whatever's happening, but also on the main page on my website. If you scroll down just a tad, you'll see a newsletter sign up for my book, which you can put your email address into and confirm it in your inbox. And then any news that is going to come out, I'm targeting this fall. I don't have an exact date for release yet, but I'm just saying fall 2024 right now. You'll see the book there. And then any news about release, it's going to come out on print, ebook, and eventually Audible when I have time to sit down and record my voice. But yeah, everything, you could reach me from my website, yourdivinity.org. Everything about me and my services and what I do is there. And I also have a coupon code for your listeners, Divinity Friends and the number 1, Divinity Friends 1.
Okay.
That'll get you 5% off of any service on my website. And I do a lot of different things. Also sign up for my newsletter, my main newsletter too. It's been a very busy few months getting everything up and running, but I promise I'll have newsletters coming out soon. And my social media pages are Your Divinity William on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and then YouTube at Your Divinity. And on my YouTube is really special. I'm a musician too. I've been a musician for over 15 years. And so I put up meditation music and mantras, and my podcast has the video version on YouTube too. I do a lot of stuff, and I also post like cool TikToks and inspirational messages on my social media pages, my Instagram, Facebook. So come find me. I'm an open book. My email and the contact form is up on my website. My podcast is up on Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere that you listen. Come and find me. I would love to talk to you.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a delightful being of light you are. So love your presence and being in service with you today. And I'm just going to give everybody a kiss. And if you want to join me, you're welcome to. Energetic kisses. Here they come, everybody. We love you so much. Yes. And we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show, everyone. Bye for now.
If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken away to show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are. Soul Nectar Show. Yeah, yeah.